excited for the panel discussion of the people here. There are going to be four people who all have very distinct businesses that thrive on meeting people and connecting with people and doing business with people one-on-one. And every single one of them have had to adjust and to adapt and to reinvent what the future looks like. Let me tell you who the people are. First of all, Aaron and Raina from Coladas Coffee and Crepes. It's a classic coffee house where people come together and they connect and they got their little cup of coffee and their crepe and their sandwich or whatever they've got. And it's a total place for people to connect in that kind of way. People coming together. Also, Gail Shanks from the Changing Hands bookstore. This is like one of those great quaint bookstores you see in the movies where people come and they get a book and they curl up and they read some of it and they look at it and they pick out gifts for people, and it's a meeting place, it's a connecting place. That's what you do at Changing Hands Bookstore. Kelly Albee from the Film Bar. What other places are where people come and connect and watch a film and talk and socialize? And Jenny Poon from Cahoots. It's a great co-working space. The whole operative thing there is people working together and all coming together to do that kind of stuff, to be productive and to connect and get things done. All four of those were dramatically impacted by what happened just a little over a year ago when everything started to shut down and life changed forever. Let me jump in with a couple of questions here. Let me start with Aaron Raina from Coladas Coffee and Crepes. Aaron, how soon did you realize we got to change? We got to pivot. We got to do something different here. Aaron, any idea? You remember back in those days and what was like?
Yeah. First off, Darren, how many coffees have you had? Man, I love that
energy. I'm not even a coffee group, but I would come any day for the crepes. By the way, what's your favorite crepe on the menu board? Any idea?
It has to be the tropical crepe. If you haven't had it, it has cream cheese, pineapple, coconut, walnuts. Man, I eat it almost every day. So that's my favorite.
Okay, that's where I will get my energy from. So I'll stop in next time. Okay, what was life like for you, and when did you realize you had to change?
I mean, as soon as we started seeing, changes going on, hearing about, how serious this was, automatically we started getting worried about the changes that were going on. So I think right then and then, me being the creative director, how can we communicate with our guests, the people around us? What changes do we need to do in order so everybody can stay protected? So I think as soon as everything really got serious, we stepped in and started getting help from outside and asking our advisor and people around us, what is it that we need to do? Because this seems like it's not going to be something that's just going to go right away. So I think it was very soon, as soon as we started hearing everything that was going on.
Yeah, and dramatic. We'll find out in a second for some of the things you did. Let me hop over to Gail for a second as well. Gail, you got a bookstore. You got people in here walking up and down the aisles, and all of a sudden things start shutting down. How soon did you realize that life for a bookstore was going to change?
Well, we started noticing that fewer and fewer people were coming in, and we were also starting to follow the science and trying to decide if it was safe for our staff and our customers to be inside our store. So, by mid-March, we decided the tide had turned and we were going to have to close the doors. So it wasn't gradual. I would say it was quite, a quick decision on our parts to close the store, because we just didn't feel, with the public coming in and out, especially with First Draft, which is our bar in the Phoenix store, we just had no clue how you could not be wearing a mask and be safe for other customers, and again for the bar staff or the bookstore staff.
Yeah, and just hearing you say that, because it's one thing to say, hey, we need to make some changes, we need to keep people safe, but even for you, just to hear you say the term, we had to close the doors. We had to, that just is so final, and that's just so dramatic of a change for someone to do. Kelly, tell me what life was like for you guys when you decided, hey, we got to do something.
It was the same thing, actually. We saw it about 6 weeks or so, maybe a little bit more than that, leading up to whenever that was. Was it March 15th or whenever that was? When everything got officially shut down. The public was already telling us that they sort of wanted us to shut down because, you could see the numbers just dropping more and more and more. And, for the couple weeks leading up to the official shutdown, there was almost nobody coming in anyway. So it was going to happen, whether there was any sort of and whether the government said anything about it one way or the
I just got to ask a little follow up. Did you have like a pit in your stomach as you're watching fewer and fewer people coming in? I mean, what's that like for you trying to keep this place afloat?
Yeah, of course. I mean, off and on throughout the history of, I think any small business owner probably has a pit in their stomach off and on many times throughout the year. But, seeing this coming up, yeah, I mean, you're looking at it, it's like you're going to hit a wall, and you know it's coming, and you're just staring at it going, okay, well, at least I know it's coming. Maybe
Yeah.
that's a positive. And what can I do about it leading into it rather than just waiting for the wall to hit?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, at least you know it's coming, but like that's almost this sick dread that you watch this wall coming closer and closer to you every day, thinking like, I'm not sure what's gonna happen when the wall
Yeah.
hits. Some people might just want to wake up and have the wall already hit them. I gotta jump over to Jenny. Jenny, your whole business is people coming in and connecting and talking and co-working. When did you realize it wasn't working?
Um, we also had a little bit of a head start, and unlike the rest of the people on the panel, we're not a Main Street business, so it's not like we depend on street traffic, right? We have memberships and people come and go. But being of Asian background, we kind of heard a lot of this coming in back in February when I was seeing other Asian businesses get boycotted or just like bias or racism towards those businesses before even closing. And so we kind of jumped in and helped early on, knowing that it was going to trickle down and get bigger, and seeing how the pandemic had affected other countries across the world. We knew it was coming. So I would say we started working on safety measures a month before an actual shutdown. I don't think it really hit us until a couple months in when the shutdown actually happened that this was the reality, right? Of of not just the next 6 months, but for the next year and change, right? We're past a year now, so it's going to be a year and a half that we'll be navigating this.
Yeah, if it were only a year, if we were back to normal already, that would be so
Yeah.
much nicer. But I mean, that's part of the beauty that we'll talk about is how you all have adapted, and so the future looks better. Well, you're here, Jenny. I got to ask you a little follow up question, because it's one thing just to say, we got to make a change with business, whatever, but this becomes extremely personal, and this is really real with real people dealing on a daily basis. And I mean, adults, we love that human connection, but certainly kids do as well. Your young daughter sort of taught you the importance of the personalization. Tell me what happened.
Yeah. So throughout the pandemic, my daughter is 6, and she had just switched schools in her first year of first grade. She had not been able to meet her teacher. They went directly to online. And one day, after she had finished her online school, she ran outside and heard a little girl on the other side of the fence. And like they essentially started playing with each other, but between a fence. And I would look outside every other day and see her laughing and swinging on our own swings in our backyard by herself. And then I'd pop out there and ask her, what's going on? And she said she's playing with Ellie, her best friend that's on the other side of the fence. And so there's this reminder of, even through the pandemic, that we are all humans and we need to interact with each other. That's like just a natural part of being human, right? And back to what Kimber said earlier this morning, that these relationships are the foundation for our growth as a community, as business owners, as people. And so that was the big lesson for me, was these relationships can continue to happen even between a wall and through a pandemic.
Yeah, and I think that's the classic example of, even if there's a wall there, even though, like as Kelly was mentioning about the wall, it's literally was a wall there that was separating her from people that she wanted to connect with. Every single one of you have found ways to connect through the wall, whether it's just, two girls talking over the fence. With every single one of you have had to figure out, what are some ways that we can connect with people. Aaron, I want to hop back to you, because you guys decided you wanted to connect with your clients and your customers. You started making some videos, right?
Yeah, we kind of shared the recipe in a way of how to make crepes from home. And, we got together, it's a family business, and we're a restaurant. Unfortunately, we can have people in the room with us. So we sat together, like, what if we share a recipe that people can make crepes at home. And, we're like, maybe people aren't going to come as often as they used to before. But what we found out is when people try to make it at home, they're sending messages like, wow, now we get to appreciate what a crepe really is and the whole process. So I think at the end it worked both ways, but that was a little way that we could add value to our guests in the middle of the pandemic.
Did you also make videos on how to make coffee as well?
Yeah, we made kind of like a little demonstration, and we actually started selling coffee so people can take home, and even started a podcast where we even had Kimber on there sharing how people can get involved still in the middle of pandemic and network with each other.
See, that to me, that's your specialty. Only you guys can make the crepes and the coffee. And you are literally then telling people, hey, we're sharing our secrets with you. We're showing you how to make crepes and coffee. I would be thinking like, Aaron, you are nuts. You're giving away the family secret, but you actually built a better connection with your customers that way, right?
Yeah, they learn to appreciate it a little more. And a lot of people still this day, whenever we had a friend of ours who was in the hospital, she can't get up. She was like, thanks for that recipe, because I can make a little bit of colados and have it at home. So it was pretty cool to see that.
Yeah, that's the connection through the fence. Gail, you went from this typical bookstore with big aisles and people walking down and pulling books off of bookshelves or whatever. And from that, how did things switch overnight? Because obviously then nobody's walking up and down the aisles. What's going on the aisles now instead of that?
Well, what happened is we went from a customer-facing, doors open retail store to one with the doors closed and the aisles became a mail-out business. We put portable tables there, we bought mailing items, and we started answering endless phone calls and taking tons of orders over our website and the internet. And so instead of our customers coming in and browsing, we were browsing for them. We were packing for them. We were mailing to them. We were dropping books into the back windows or trunks of their cars. So essentially my booksellers turned really from front facing the customers to these, voices on the phone or an order over the internet. The remarkable thing was that even though that was what was happening, our customers, and I can really tell from the rest of you as well, they wanted our businesses to be there when and if this ever ended. And I think that was what sustained us and kept us going day after day, hundreds of orders every day that were just nearly impossible to fill because we didn't know how to do that. We'd never been a serious mail order business before. So we just had to learn new skills. And it was quite an extraordinary experience to see my staff stepping up about, 20 leagues beyond where they'd been before and wanting it to all work.
How many orders for books, like before the pandemic, like in an average week, how many orders do you think you would get for a book?
Well, unfortunately, we always wanted, the store to have a vibrant online presence because we were competing obviously with Amazon, but we never really could do that. So we would maybe get 10 orders a week, and we were getting between 200 and 300 orders a day, months on end.
Wow, that's just a sign. That's the sign that you're continuing to connect with your people, with your clientele. It's like the across the fence kind of analogy there.
It was across the fence, like Jenny said. It might not have been in the backyard, but it was definitely across fences and walls.
Let me pick Kelly's brain a little bit more here. Kelly, first of all, I got to find out. It's the elephant in the room. Where are you in a car right now?
I am, and I'm sorry. I got caught in a space where I didn't intend, but I really wanted to be here. So.
No, I love it. I love the fact that you're in the car. That's the whole thing. That's the lesson we have learned from this pandemic is you can be in a car and you can be sharing all your insight with everyone. It doesn't matter where you are or when you are, you can be connecting. So even if you didn't have to be in the car, had I thought of this, I would have said, Kelly, go out and do it from inside the car. That will make it look cooler. Tell me, Kelly, how did you walk me through the story of how you realized here's how we have to reinvent, and here's how we have to create the new connection here.
Yeah, I mean, it's a long story in my head. I'll try to keep it brief, but basically the idea was that we saw that wall coming, as I referred to earlier, and certainly a lot of businesses are like this, where if you can't keep the doors open, if you're a brick and mortar, you're just not you never thought about what to do if the doors are closed. And so I had to start thinking about that, and I think maybe because I have a long history in technology before I opened Film Bar, that was where I looked. I started thinking of technological solutions, and so, we tried an online streaming platform for quite a while. I think recently we just decommissioned it. But, okay, if you can't come into our place, then we are going to establish a platform that you can go to and still see some movies. And they're films at this stage. They were films that you could get if you went to Amazon or Netflix or whatever as well. But please get them from us because we need a little help here. And so we did that. And the long short story is that began the process of a lot of decisions that revolved around decentralization of our operations, and that was really the key of it. Is that I said, well, we're going to have to decentralize. So we, started doing movies in the parking lot for a little while, and we've opened up this place over at the Pemberton, a new development. We've leveraged some of our partnerships and strengthened them with the art museum. So we're doing regular screenings over at the art museum right now. We've done some stuff with the Orpheum, and we just started to share our mission in other spaces. And hope for the best.
And what has been the reaction as you've reinvented this and you're saying, here's what we're doing? What kind of connection have you sensed from the community?
It's been, the community is, I mean, there was a time in the very beginning where, I knew that we didn't have a lot of cash in the bank. We've never been a rich business. If you want to make a lot of money, you don't open a movie theater. I'll give people that advice. And so when the pandemic was coming, I was like, oh, we're toast. But I decided to make a plan, and the plan was I needed to raise some capital quickly. Instead of asking for the capital, I wanted to make sure that I offered something in return. So we did these, I called them unlimited-ish memberships or whatever. And for a certain amount of money, you could have a film a day for life, should you want. And I needed to put it at a price point that people would look at and go, oh my gosh, this is such a great deal. And so we did it. And the first day we launched it, by the end of the day, I began to realize that it was going sort of locally viral. And I fell down and cried. It was like my one shot. I had a rifle, and I had a target, and I had exactly one bullet to hit the bullseye. And that's how it felt to me, and we did. But what I realized is it was never that precise. I think that the community was much more behind us than I realized. At that moment, it felt that acute to me that we had to be perfect at that moment with this thing. But what I realized is that, and that's probably why I cried that moment, was that I'm like, wow, I've killed myself for 10 years on this thing. And I think that there's enough people in the community that get what we're trying to do here. And it was kind of overwhelming.
Yeah. Sort of like the community they would have hugged you had you not exactly hit the middle of the target. They're like, you hit close, and we're here for you. And it doesn't matter if it's exactly the right thing.
Yeah, it was a stunning realization for me, for sure.
I love it. Thanks for sharing. Speaking of people creating new stuff, I got to jump back to Jenny, because Jenny, you like recreated, you came up with a whole brand new industry /product / platform or something, right?
Yeah. So through the pandemic, we're a co-working space, so we bring people together, and it was difficult because our customers are the ones that are being shut down, right? Like they're the most affected. Our customers are our businesses, and so we saw the bottom of our community drop out. All our small businesses that leaned on us for guidance, for space, for event space, for that community to grow amongst each other. So a lot of them hung on for as long as they could. And I think, like Kelly, we saw this beautiful level of support from people saying, hey, my business was completely impacted. I don't want you to also shut down. So can we pay a little bit to just help you stay alive while you're helping us stay alive, right? And because we do educational events and services as well. And so that was incredible. In terms of co-working spaces and our peers, we saw, I think, a drop of between 75 to 80% loss in other co-working spaces. But ourselves, I think we were at that point probably like a 25 to 35% loss, right? Just our bottom drop down. And being able to see all these people come forward and say like, we love you, we care, it doesn't even matter what your services are, we're here to support you, is that level of small business that we've been nurturing for 10 years, right? And to see that actually come and arrive at the moment when you need it the most is very heartwarming. But as we were navigating this, how this new idea came up was we were seeing, like listening very carefully to what people were needing. And I think this is the key piece of navigating a pandemic or any challenging situation, is to listen to where the needs are, where the holes are. We started our business in the middle of a pandemic, the last one in 2009, 2010. And so we know that pandemics, or not pandemics, but recessions are the best time to really launch something new and to experiment. And you have this huge like level of support because everybody's struggling in the same way. And so we were listening and we saw very clearly, and I think Thomas from Local First was on the same call, where we saw a lot of municipalities get on this call, and their approach to helping small businesses was to just make phone calls for a really long period of time to understand what the challenges are for small businesses, which was incredibly frustrating because we, as servers of small businesses, know what those challenges are. And so as I dug into that, realizing how technically challenged government was, and how because of that it led to problems within our community, problems with our small businesses being able to access programs, being able to access the PPP funding, being able to access all the things that are available to us right now that are meant for us, but we didn't know about them, we didn't know how to access them. They weren't built like with us in mind from the ground up. And so we dug into that and we built a platform called MyHub. And it's HUUB because we couldn't get hub. And it's essentially a platform free for all small businesses to find grants, to find other small businesses in their community, to get like pivoting advice or learning lessons from other experts in the community, and essentially a centralized place that government should have been serving before but didn't. And so this came about because the city of Mesa actually reached out and said, how would you do it? And they were interested in hearing new ideas. And so we were building something like this in before, and essentially pivoted and adjusted it to basically be citywide to serve small businesses in the same realm that we serve as a co-working space, but for government. So democratizing like the resources available.
So now not only are you come up with the solution, you're helping everybody else and to be able to connect and all that stuff. I think you were mentioning to me earlier, when you first were in a meeting, the solution that the governments had was a little bit slower than you wanted it to be, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it was, let's spend 8 weeks to do research, right? In the middle of a pandemic, to understand what our communities need. And I think they could have easily talked to Local First. They could have talked to any of the chambers, any of the groups that are doing this work on the ground, and had that answer within 24 hours and not spent 8 weeks. There's a lot of complexity with that now that we're a year past that. Like, they didn't have the data to really know who these businesses were. They didn't have resources to be able to solve the problems at that point. No funding was coming down from the federal government. And so there's complexity there. But in terms of like, I think that was the point where I realized, oh man, like if you can't even put out a quick survey, like there's a lot of things that you probably don't have in place that businesses have known how to do for a very long time, right? And so it was really around moving into a digital space and helping government to move into that space, because they're going to have to build capacity as we come out of this recession.
Yeah, like you don't need to take 2 months for us to tell you what businesses need. What they need is a tropical crepe is what they need. And Aaron, I gotta ask you, we've talked about different people and different things, products and innovations and how they're reinventing and new offerings. You guys, I mean, you're not going to come up with, I guess you could come up with new crepes, but you actually pivoted and offered some new stuff that you came up with during the pandemic, right?
Yeah, I mean, everything we had a lot of time on our hands because we weren't working as much at the shop. So we actually introduced our merch, which is, drink the same coffee, but at your house. We came out with shirts. We started doing Uber a couple of months before, which that helped a lot. So we kind of gave us a little push to really focus on, people taking colados home in a way with, the crepes, how they were being taken, how they were being eaten on there. So everything was kind of a little bit more perfected that we didn't even think about before.
Are you personally designing any of the merch?
Yeah, I was the one designing most of them. It took a little while, but once they got here, I mean, it almost kind of cleaned out everything, very soon. So it went out pretty fast.
Well, good. I'm glad. I'd hate it if, like, three people design stuff and your stuff never sold. They were like, clearly we got a problem with your designs here. So I'm glad yours cleared out quickly. Gail, you also, I know when you did that pivoting stuff, we're talking about recreating products and recreating services. You had to like relook at some of the roles that people had and some of the positions that people had. What was it like for you guys to be a bookstore that had maybe done 10 books a week to now all of a sudden 300 a day? How did you come up with supplies and the supply chain and the to get everything mobilized quickly?
Well, the first thing that happened, honestly, was that our staff instantly went from 63 people to maybe 50 people because we had a lot of booksellers who were taking care of aging parents or young children. And so instantly, even though we didn't have customers anymore, but we did have work, we had to reallocate the work inside the store, which was not the same as the work had been when customers were coming in and our staff was running the cash register and helping at the information counter and making coffee and pouring beer and wine. So we just had to instantly reposition those staff members into new jobs. And none of us really knew how to run a mail order business. So we were just learning, absolutely minute to minute. And we didn't have enough supplies. We didn't have enough mailers from the post office. We didn't have enough, fluffy envelopes, puffy envelopes that you would get at an office supply store. And our local office supply store, which we instantly phoned, was out of their stock within 10 minutes of other stores closing down. So it all became an adventure. Every single day we would go in, the leadership team, and say, okay, we'd have a little powwow and say, what's going to work today? How are we going to change it up? What didn't work yesterday? And the remarkable thing again was the support that we got from our colleagues around the country, other booksellers, that we were having, again, meetings with them in the morning. We would call them up and say, what did you do? Are you getting all these crazy orders in? And is the wholesaler fulfilling them? Or how are you doing this? So we really got a lot of support. We talked to a lot of local business people here. And, as Jenny says, we know our business. We have, between probably the four of us, we have a couple hundred years of business experience. And, it's really crucial to call on one another, I think, during these times to ask for help and support. And in my experience, not only am I totally 100% willing to give it, but I have also found that my colleagues, all of you, were 100% willing to share everything you knew too. And that's what I think is so remarkable and is an instantaneous fix to some things that are so broken. But, Kelly, I was getting tears in my eyes to hear that story of, the people that just came through for you. And, I think it didn't matter if they got a movie or not. They just wanted you to be there when this is over. And, it's so touching to hear these stories and, really understand how important our businesses are to our community. And so I think that's why we were just absolutely determined, no matter how bleak things looked sometime and how little we really knew how to do anything, that we were just going to figure it out. And I'll tell you, we just figured it out. And I just have a great team of, smart, creative people. And I think as I'm listening to this, I think we all do. And that's the part that is so remarkable.
And even you're saying that and reinforcing what Kelly said brings, I think, just reinforces how personal this is. It is not just businesses. It is not just dollars. It is not just, some cash register doing business or whatever. It is really these personal connection stories, whether they are inside of our own business and taking care of each other, whether it is business to business and taking care of other businesses, whether it's the businesses with our customers and building that connection. But it's real people. Kelly, I saw you reach up and push your button on your phone. Like, were you wanting to say something, or were you just brushing a fly off of your phone screen?
I dropped out for a minute and I was just trying to fix it.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay. I'm gonna ask you a little question here. On a scale of 1 to 10, how has the pandemic been for you? 1 being the most devastating, horrible, awful, never want to go through that ever again in my life, to 10 being, I'm better off. I was able to reinvent. I was able to get stronger. I was able to do things that I might not have been. While I wouldn't wish it ever again, I'm better off. So 1 to 10. Let me start with Aaron. Aaron, any guess on a scale of 1 to 10? How would you rank the last year?
I would say probably like a 7. Of course, it hurt us. We would never want it to happen again. But looking back at it, it made us stronger. It really pushed us to be better and kind of exposed us to who we were. And we had just opened our second location a couple of months before that. So it was very surprising. You don't really prepare for things like that. But I think looking back, it really made us stronger than we even thought we were. So I think, we learned a lot. So I think it was a good 7 for us.
Wow. Better than average. Good. Gail, where would you rank it on a scale of 1 to 10?
Well, I think I'd rank it at both ends. I think, 1, because of the sadness and the devastation of the deaths and the fright and the toll that it took on so many businesses, especially restaurants in our community. Local restaurants just, I think, had it the hardest. And, it's just so impossible. If you couldn't have your doors open, you couldn't cook food, you couldn't serve the public, then where was your business going to be? And that was just, it's just heartbreaking, really heartbreaking. As I said, we had to change up our business, and so many of the things that we changed up, we are going to continue to do moving forward, because it really did make us stronger. It really helped us understand that maybe we didn't have the right people in the right seats, that one person could do 3 jobs that they hadn't been doing before, and suddenly they could, and they wanted to, because it gave them a new sense of purpose and creativity. And my leadership team just got together weekly, and we have just come up with some, what I think are really brilliant new ideas for the book business, which is a pretty old business in the world. And I just feel like moving forward, we are going to be stronger and more efficient, and be able to stay afloat when again, the competition is with the behemoth Amazon. And yet I just feel that in spite of fighting them day in and day out, we now have better tricks to fight them with. So I think maybe an 8.
Wow.
Overall.
Wow. Kelly, I got to pop into you now. On a scale of 1 to 10, how does the last year fare for you? Kelly may have frozen, unless he's just really thinking really hard right now. We'll jump over to Jenny. Oh, Jenny. Okay. How would you rank it on a scale of 1 to 10? Maybe Kelly didn't want to answer the question, so he just put up a screensaver or something. Jenny, what would you say on 1 to 10?
I think like Gail, going through it, I was definitely a 1, right? Like I said, we didn't get devastated right at the beginning, but after several months, it was pretty hard there, and we had to scramble and figure things out. I would never if we were to do it again, I would go through it again, but I would never want to go through it again. So I would say one, going through it. Now coming out kind of on the tail end of it, I would say we're better off, right? Like we've learned another business model. We've essentially created two businesses or launched a new business through this pandemic and have another revenue stream. So I would say that we're at about an eight or nine too. But we're still not at the end of this, right? So I'm just waiting for the next thing to happen. But I feel like having gone through it, we've learned a lot, we've experienced a lot, we've expanded a lot. I mean, I think we're proud that we're breaking even, right? And no business wants to go through an entire year saying, hey, we only broke even, we want to grow every year. But to have broken even and maybe have grown a little bit through the pandemic means that in the next couple of years, I think we're positioned much better. So I would say one, going through it, 10 at the tail end of it.
Yeah. Yeah, no one's volunteering for this thing to happen again, I don't think. Kelly, on a scale of 1 to 10, you want to do any ranking for me?
Yeah, I just really quickly, I've noticed my connection keeps dropping. It's suddenly becoming unstable. So I'll try to keep this short. And really, there's not much more that I can add than what Jenny and Gail said, for sure. I mean, it's the same thing. It's been horrible and sort of horrific at times and gut wrenching and all that. On a personal level and on a business level and community level. But, through that, if you find a way to persevere, through that, great lessons come and you can evolve. I mean, I've always thought of difficult times as being, those are the things that make you evolve. Those are the things that help you grow. And so if we can find our way through this, we're only going to be better businesses and better people, I think, because of it.
Yeah, love the takeaway. Okay, so we got just like 4 or 5 minutes left. So looking ahead, what are the changes? No, not what are the changes. What changes are you going to keep? You've sort of covered a little bit, but if you're going to say, hey, we learned this and we're going to stay with this, or I don't know what. Kelly, we'll start with you because you got your connection still before we lose you again. Anything moving forward, any changes? Oh no, he just froze up as soon as I said that. And so we might pop back. We'll start with Jenny, who's the next on my little line up here on the top of my screen. What are some things that you have learned? You're going to say, this is what we're definitely keeping as we move forward.
Being an introvert, I love the Zoom meetings. Well, I don't love Zoom itself, but I love not having to set time out to travel anywhere, that I can just roll out of bed and start my meeting and start my day. So I'd say Zoom, and I think a very technology driven approach moving forward, data driven, like really, really taking the time to research what is needed and capturing that information. So I think those are the two things that we're definitely going to continue leaning on. We're going to continue building our platform and hopefully make that unanimous for all communities across our nation, that they have and can access the resources available to them. So yeah, I think those are the two things. We also have a remote team now that's across the US, and I think we'll continue that to widen our pool of expertise. And so like these technology tools that we're using that we've adopted will continue to live.
Love it. By the way, speaking of Zoom, are you wearing like pajama pants on the bottom? Or...
I was yesterday. My husband said he's going to take a picture of me because if you've seen that Time cover, there's a woman with like her face done well, but everything else is pajamas and like a mess around her. So yeah, yesterday, not today. I actually.
Okay, good. I see Kelly jump back in, so I'll jump back in while he's got a connection. Kelly, anything that you're keeping as we moving forward? What are you most exciting to what new innovation, whatever that you're going to keep with you as we go forward?
I think the biggest thing is the decentralization. I think that we've been forced to kind of reach out more into the community, dig deeper into doing things in partnership with other community partners, offsite screenings we would call them, and you're probably going to see a lot more of that in the future.
Love it. Okay, Gail, what do you? Okay. And by the way, Kelly, if your business ever goes under and you lose your house, at least you have a really nice car that you can live in, and you can have good Wi-Fi coverage in there for the most part.
I've got it worked out. Yep.
Okay, Gail, what are you looking forward to? What you've learned in the last year, 9 whatever year plus months that you're looking forward to now going forward?
Well, I think, like Jenny, we are really looking to technology in a new and better way and bigger way, and to social media. And the other thing that we figured out during this pandemic is that, like Aaron was talking about too, you need to figure out new ways of connecting with your customers when they're not there in front of you. And so we've started asking our booksellers to put together their favorite books, and they're doing videos, and we're putting those on the website, and we're just astounded at how many views they're getting. So it's really opened up a whole lot of new social media possibilities for us that we just we just said, okay, we're going to do that one day, but now we're there, and I don't think that's ever going to go away. Nor is us figuring out a really good website that can really work for customers and make it easy for them to order books from us. So those are my big takeaways.
Love it. And we'll wrap it up with Aaron. Aaron, what's I was going to say, it's sort of like our dessert. You're the cherry on top of the tropical crepe here. What are you taking forward to with this as you go moving forward after this?
Yeah, I think I stand with everybody else. The power of online. We're going to continue to do online ordering. We're talking about doing an app so people can order online. As a restaurant, usually you have people there, eating crepes and coffee, but how can we take that home in the future? Maybe providing crepes that they can make at home, the batter already ready, or ways that we can innovate so it's not just in our plates, but you can take all the ingredients home and you can do it yourself. So really focusing on online. I think this past year really opened our eyes to how powerful we have social media, and how those can really connect to people from home. So I think we can really take advantage of the online stuff that's going on.
Thank you. I think great. The insight between the four of you is astounding. As everyone is, we're sorry any of us had to go through this. It was excruciating, and it was painful, and we were forced to do things that we never wanted to. But learning the lessons from what you all did and how you pivoted and how you adjusted, and especially what I love the most, how you built connections, not just with your customers, but with other local businesses who were in the same situation, and you can reach out and draw on them. And I think that's the whole point of why we're all here at the summit, learning how to be better and learning how to get better tools. So thank you all so much for sharing your brilliant ideas and your observations and your experiences, whether they were good or they were painful, and hopefully we are all better off for them. So thanks again.